And, Jack is basically got the epitome of man strength. When you see him, you just imagine like his hand shakes probably hurt your hands. And, if he like hugged you, it probably hurts.
What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So Nick, Jack the Joker, one of the guys that we love.
Yeah.
He's just such an exciting guy. Who heel hooks Kelvin Gastelum?
Yeah.
Jack the Joker does.
That's what always sticks out of my mind when I think of Jack the Joker. He's just an intense individual that I feel like can probably beat any 185er on any given night, with just purely based off intensity. And he seems like one of those dudes that's just an absolute nightmare to have get a hold of you.
Yeah, you summed it up the best when we did our last Jack video. He's the guy in MMA class or at jiu-jitsu that when the coach says, okay, you two are paired up, you're like, oh, damn. It's gonna be why did I come to class today?
It's going to be a rough 10 minutes.
My back's hurting. I think I'm going to sit this one out. He's just like an intense, kind of savage guy.
Yeah.
But Edmen Shahbazyan certainly had his moments in that first round. Actually, I thought at one point that he might get a TKO stoppage of Jack. He's just such a tough guy. But Shahbazyan, coming off that loss against Brunson, he got kind of grappled up and he wanted to prove a point that he doesn't have bad grappling. He's coming along, and I think he somewhat proved that point last night. But Jack was able to really dominate him in that third round, getting 10-8s on all three judges' scorecards. Which shout out to the judges, by the way, because that was one of the few times where all of them got it right. It was 29-27 ended up being the final score. But that first round, Edmen looked for a guy that's in his early 20s, very composed, very, very calm and calculated, feinting, landing. He was feinting a jab and then landing a straight right and a hook following up. Hurt Jack a couple of times and got Jack moving, even to the point where he shot a couple desperation takedown attempts that got stuffed. But ultimately, he just ended up being too strong, too relentless, and too good on the ground for, I won't say an inexperienced grappler, but for somebody who's young and grappling isn't their strong suit, like Shahbazyan. So, Jack it was one of those things where the veteran did what the veteran had to do to get his hand raised, even in the event of some adversity in the first round.
Yeah, and, Jack is basically got the epitome of man strength. When you see him, you just imagine like his hand shakes probably hurt your hands. And, if he like hugged you, it probably hurts.
Yeah.
And that comes with age. And Edmen's at that age where he hasn't really grown into his strength, grown into his body yet.
His hands aren't calloused like Jack's probably are.
Right, exactly. Like, I just feel like there's a difference with the anatomy of a grown man like Hermansson and a young up-and-comer like Edmen. And Edmen should chalk all these fights up with these legends, these beasts, these veterans as experience. And don't look at yourself anymore as a invincible young man that can just go take over the world. Look at yourself as another one of these top-level fighters, just like everybody else on the roster. The rare case where you're a Khabib and you're 29-0, or you're a John Jones and the only fight you ever lost was one of your most dominant fights of all time. Those are unicorns, and not only in the sport, but they're unicorns in life. And you're not a failure if you're not that. You have to keep moving forward. You have to keep learning in every fight. And I feel like if you can take that Derek Brunson loss, or you can take this Jack Hermansson loss and learn from it and just keep getting better and understand that this is a long game. This is a marathon, not a sprint, that we will see Edmen Shahbazyan be maybe not quite as successful as they were touting him to originally be, but we will see him be a very successful UFC fighter. And I definitely think that'll be the case. He clearly showed us in the first round that he can hang with the elite of the elite fighters in the UFC in his division. It just happens that, those veterans are crafty. They have their experience. They have their moves. They know what to do when they drag you into the late rounds, into the deep waters. And, it was a learning night for Edmen.
Yeah, it was definitely a learning night, and I'll even say that even the Khabib is a bit of a different story because he came into the UFC a little bit more mature, a little bit older, and when he was really dominating, he was in that late 20s, early 30s kind of athletic prime. But I would go as far as to say that John Jones would not be John Jones if he were to be 21 years old right now in the light heavyweight division. I believe that the days of a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old coming into the UFC and becoming a champion are a thing of the past.
I do too.
Everybody's too good now. Yeah. Everybody's peaking in their 30s. Everybody's training more intelligently. Everybody's training harder but more intelligently. They're not having these gym wars anymore. They're focusing on the aspects of martial arts where they're lacking. You can't just be a good wrestler anymore. You can't just be a good Muay Thai striker or a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You've got to be everything all at once, and it's got to all come together, and you almost can't. There's not enough time to develop that skill set at 22 years old.
Yeah.
You need to be in the game a little bit longer than that. And so I would venture to say that a 21 years old John Jones would be but a contender at today's light heavyweight division.
Yeah, I agree. And, timing is everything in this world. And John Jones is definitely somebody who benefited from the timing. He was beating a lot of veterans, and some of those veterans are still in the light heavyweight division, maybe for better or for worse for some of them.
Yeah.
They're a little old, they're a little long in the tooth, as they like to say, in their 40s and stuff like that. But when John came in, he was far more athletic, and these guys were UFC fighters of old. They were good at one thing. Nobody really had great striking,
Yeah.
And nobody was that versatile. Nobody was that athletic. And this was kind of
the
right.
sport wasn't that big. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many more people that do MMA now than did when John entered the sport.
Right. And with the USADA coming in shortly after he had gotten there, and, everybody, was on whatever they were on, and then they had to come off whatever they were on. And then their bodies literally changed. And when you're 34 and you're taking stuff, you're a lot different than when you're 37 and you're not taking that stuff anymore. You're a lot worse, actually. So timing worked out well for John, and I don't want to talk too much about that because it relates to Edmen, but not entirely. And I think Edmen just needs to understand that he is one of the elite fighters in the 185 division. There's tons of great fights for him there. And if he's able to just settle into being a top 10 guy, which is nothing to scoff at, you should be very, very proud of yourself.
And he's only losing to top 5, top 10 guys.
Exactly.
You put him in there with anybody outside the top 10, he's taking him out.
Yeah, there's a reason he wound up fighting those guys so quickly, is because it was literally dangerous for them to put him in with some unranked guys. Maybe a perfect matchup for him, and we say this guy's name often, but Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat's always looking to bounce back and forth from 185 170. Maybe you get two of those young guys early on. This is the anti-boxing theory of get two young guys in there with each other young early in their careers, and very promising, very marketable. Get those guys in there early. I'd love to see those two mix it up and see if he could handle some of that striking or some of that grappling from Khamzat. And I think it would be a true test for him because he's a little bit bigger than Khamzat, a little bit more experience as far as UFC fights go. So I think what you have to start doing right now is not looking for ways to jump the line into a title fight. Just start looking for ways to start stringing win streaks together.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems that these young up-and-comers have is that they feel this undue pressure to beat John's record or get to the belt or get to a title shot fast.
It's for example, Macy Barber.
Exactly. That was just the name I was gonna use as an example. You have Edmen Shahbazyan, you have Macy coming out and saying, I'm going to be the youngest champion in UFC history. I'm going to beat John's record.
O'Malley.
Sean O'Malley, albeit it's not in a division that's as competitive as the men's light heavyweight division. Mm-hmm. It's still very difficult. And for Macy to think realistically that she's going to go be the champion in the women's flyweight division, that's a big undertaking. I think, and Aaron Pico is another perfect example of that.
Yeah.
A guy that Bellator put a lot of money behind and said, look, this is the guy. This is they were ready to anoint him as the Messiah of Bellator before he even had a fight there. Yeah. And then he goes out and gets his ass kicked a couple of times, and he's got a record that's south of 500. Yeah. And now people are talking about, oh my God, what happened to Aaron Pico? What happened was you dum-dums told him, an 18-year-old kid
with a record of 0-0.
with a record of 0-0 just because he's athletic and he's got some Golden Glove experience and he's got some good wrestling experience, that he's going to be the next world champion and he's going to diminish and overshadow what John Jones did. It's just not going to happen. This is 2021. The days of a 21-year-old champion, in my opinion, are over. And maybe somebody will come along a couple years from now and make me eat my words and slap me in the face here. But I just don't see it. Yeah. I think that it takes until you're in your late 20s to ascertain all of the skills and strength and mindset to be a champion. And I think these people like Macy, Edmen, and Pico, and all of O'Malley, all of the people surrounding them, telling them that they're the next best thing when they still have a long way to go, is kind of what has caused some of these careers to derail a bit. Yeah. Now, all of the people that I just mentioned will probably likely all become champions of the world at some point. But it could have been done without some of these setbacks. Yeah.
You can't blow too much hot air up there into their brain.
What?
Yeah, exactly. But like Aaron Pico's a perfect example. You got this guy 0-0, and just trust us. What he's done in his other sports.
There was a Golden Gloves tournament in California, and he with a headgear on and 16-ounce gloves, he outpointed everybody. And then he went to nationals, did the same thing, and he's really good at wrestling. Would have gone to the Olympics, but he decided to come over here and become a prize fighter. Well, there's some, and then they say, oh, well, nobody wants to fight him. Nobody's going to fight Aaron Pico. Then you call some guy who's 4-4 or 5-5, whatever the guy was. Guy with tats on his neck.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, Aaron who? Sure, I'll fight him. I don't care. And this guy's got that experience. I just got into
a bar fight last night.
Right. Yeah. and then he beats the hell out of Aaron Pico, and that is just really bad on your mind. And when you're a young person and you're told all this stuff, and granted, you might be the next best thing. And there's those people telling you that might not be wrong for saying that, but they can't let you believe that you're invincible. None of us are invincible. Everybody gets hit. Everybody falls. You just have to understand that. And these young fighters, the more they can understand that and the sooner they can understand it, the more it'll pay off for them. Because I'd hate to see people like O'Malley, Edmen, Macy, Aaron Pico, you name them, all those people not reach their full potential because their mindset is holding them back.
I agree. And kind of coming back to the winner last night, Jack Hermansson, I think we can talk about Edmen and the way that he's kind of been rushed to the top is a downside and kind of something that could have been avoided or could have been done differently. But I think also we have to give credit to Jack for fighting a great fight. And Jack, Israel Adesanya said, look, I want to take out everybody at 185. Yeah. I hope Darren Till can string some wins together because I'd love to fight him. I hope Jack can string some more wins together because I would love, even though I think Izzy would beat him, I just want to see Jack Hermansson versus Adesanya. And I think at least the way he dominated that third round and grounded, pounded the hell out of Edmen last night, and I'm sure everybody's going to let me know in the comments that, hey, if Edmen can hit him in the first round, so can Izzy. I'm well aware of that. Yeah. I'm just making some parody here to say that if he can do what he did to Edmen in the third round to Izzy, similar to what Jan did, we might have an interesting fight on our hands. Yeah. And we know Jack's hard to put away. So he's somebody who I would love to see continue to get a couple of wins and be in there with Izzy. Him and Darren Till are my two must-haves for Adesanya if he gets past Vettori, which I think he probably will.
Yeah, and I think that would be a fun match, Till versus Hermansson even.
Yeah.
But, Adesanya has shown us that grappling is his weaker side of the sport, and Hermansson has shown us that he can grapple pretty well. He can also strike really well, but he's also good at scoring submissions from safe positions in MMA. And I understand that there's not a ton of safe positions as far as grappling goes, and especially when you get into the leg locks in those types of positions, you're prone to getting hit. But Jack Hermansson, with that intensity and that explosive style that he has, if he could get a hold of one of those ankles or something, it could be a big problem for him.
He'll gladly eat a few shots on the chin to tear all of the ligaments in your knee.
Right, especially for that gold strap.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks so much for watching our video. Let us know what you thought about Jack the Joker's performance last night and what should be next for Edmen. At 23 years old, the sky is still the limit for him. Don't let these 2 losses in a row change your opinion on that. But we love hearing from you guys in the comments. So as always, please like, comment, and subscribe if you've enjoyed the content. And check us out on audio where you listen to podcasts. We'll see you in the next one, guys.
Peace.